Social isolation is a state of detachment from others, where you lack meaningful and fulfilling social bonds. It can happen to anyone, regardless of their relationship status, community participation, or number of contacts. Social isolation can have major consequences for both physical and mental health. How does social isolation affect our mental health? Studies show that feeling isolated can be linked to various psychological problems, such as depression. Social isolation can increase the risk of developing depression or worsen existing symptoms. People who feel isolated may have low self-esteem, negative thoughts, and reduced motivation. They may also lack the social support that can help them cope with life challenges. Anxiety. Social isolation can also trigger or exacerbate anxiety disorders, such as social anxiety, panic disorder, or agoraphobia. People who feel isolated may experience more fear, worry, and nervousness. They may also avoid social situations that could help them overcome their fears. Cognitive decline. Social isolation can impair cognitive functioning and increase the risk of dementia, especially in older adults. People who feel isolated may have less mental stimulation, memory, and concentration. They may also experience more brain inflammation and oxidative stress. The longer someone feels isolated, the greater the impact on their mental health. Social isolation can create a vicious cycle, where people withdraw from others and feel more lonely, which in turn makes them isolate themselves even more. Fortunately, there are ways to cope with social isolation and improve your mental health. Some of the strategies you can try are: acknowledge your feelings. Don't ignore or suppress your emotions when you feel isolated. Instead, accept them and try to understand what causes them. You can also seek professional help if you need it. Get outside. Spending time outdoors can boost your mood and reduce stress. You can enjoy the natural light, the fresh air, and the scenery. You can also engage in physical activity, which can improve your mental and physical health. Reconnect with your interests. Find something that you enjoy doing alone or with others. It can be a hobby, a skill, or a passion. Pursuing your interests can give you a sense of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. Practice self-care. Take care of yourself by relaxing, sleeping well, eating healthy, and staying hydrated. Self-care can help you cope with stress and improve your well-being. Check in with people you know. Reach out to your friends, family, or acquaintances. You can call them, text them, or video chat with them. You can also join online communities or groups that share your interests. Checking in with others can help you feel less lonely and more connected. Social isolation is not only a mental health issue, but also a physical health issue. In this section, we will explore how social isolation affects our physical health, such as weakening our immune system, increasing inflammation, and reducing lifespan. First, let's define what social isolation is. Social isolation is an objective state marked by few or infrequent social contacts. It is different from loneliness, which is the subjective and distressing feeling of social isolation. However, both social isolation and loneliness can have negative impacts on our health. According to the World Health Organization, social isolation and loneliness are prevalent in the population, with some countries reporting that up to 1 in 3 older people feel lonely. A large body of research shows that social isolation and loneliness have a serious impact on older people's physical and mental health, quality of life, and their longevity. One of the ways that social isolation affects our physical health is by weakening our immune system. Our immune system is responsible for fighting off infections and diseases. However, when we are socially isolated, we may experience chronic stress, which can impair our immune function and make us more susceptible to illnesses. For example, a study found that people who were socially isolated had lower levels of antibodies after receiving a flu vaccine than those who were socially connected. Another way that social isolation affects our physical health is by increasing inflammation. Inflammation is a natural response of our body to injury or infection. However, when inflammation becomes chronic or excessive, it can damage our tissues and organs and contribute to various diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, and cancer. Research has shown that people who are socially isolated have higher levels of inflammatory markers in their blood than those who are socially connected. A third way that social isolation affects our physical health is by reducing our lifespan. Numerous studies have found that social isolation and loneliness are associated with increased risk of mortality. For instance, a meta-analysis of 148 studies involving more than 300,000 participants found that people who had stronger social relationships had a 50% lower risk of dying than those who had weaker social relationships. The effect of social isolation and loneliness on mortality is comparable to that of other well-established risk factors such as smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. These are some of the ways that social isolation affects our physical health. As you can see, being socially connected is not only good for our mental well-being, but also for our physical well-being. In the next section, we will discuss some strategies to cope with social isolation and loneliness and improve our social connections. Social isolation and loneliness can have serious consequences for our mental and physical health. They can increase the risk of depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, heart disease, obesity, and weakened immunity. But there are ways to cope with these feelings and find meaningful connections online, engaging in hobbies and self-care, and seeking professional help if needed. One of the most important steps to cope with social isolation and loneliness is to acknowledge your feelings and accept them. Don't try to ignore or suppress them, as this can make them worse. Instead, recognize that they are normal reactions to a challenging situation and that you are not alone in feeling this way. You can also reach out to a therapist or a counselor if you need someone to talk to and get support. Another way to cope is to plan ahead and create a daily routine that gives you a sense of structure and purpose. Try to include activities that you enjoy and that make you feel good, such as reading, listening to music, gardening, cooking, or playing games. You can also schedule time each day to stay in touch with family, friends, and neighbors through phone calls, video chats, or messaging apps. You can also join online communities or groups that share your interests or hobbies. Staying physically active is also crucial for coping with social isolation and loneliness. Physical activity can boost your mood, reduce stress, improve your sleep quality, and strengthen your immune system. You can find ways to exercise at home or outdoors while maintaining physical distancing. For example, you can join a virtual exercise class, go for a walk or a bike ride with a friend, or do some yoga or meditation. Finding meaningful connections online is another way to cope with social isolation and loneliness. You can use online platforms or apps that help you connect with people who have similar goals, values, or experiences as you. For example, you can join a peer support group, a mentoring program, a volunteer organization, or a learning community. You can also use online tools or apps that help you practice gratitude, mindfulness, or self-compassion. Finally, if you are feeling overwhelmed by social isolation and loneliness, and they are affecting your daily functioning or well-being, you should seek professional help. There are many online resources and services that can help you cope with mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, or suicidal thoughts. You can also contact your healthcare provider or a mental health hotline if you need urgent assistance. Social isolation and loneliness are not easy to deal with, but they are not permanent either. By following these tips and strategies, you can cope with these feelings and improve your mental and physical health. Remember that you are not alone and that there are people who care about you and want to help you.